Now, this incident of Jesus walking on water is a very significant sign that Jesus did solely for the disciples. Now, if you follow the narrative thus far, the first sign in Cana was to a Jewish family and it's public, right? The second sign, healing the official son, also done in public, right? And then the third sign, the fourth sign, feeding the 5,000, healing the man at the pool at Bethesda, is also public in nature. That means to say there are other people there that could witness what has happened, right? Now, when come to the fifth sign, this sign is in some way a little bit more private in nature because it was for the disciples. There were no other crowd. The crowd that were trying to make Jesus king when Jesus withdrew ready, they couldn't find him. And so the evening come, Jesus was walking on water. Sea of Galilee is quite large, and in those days, if you think about the Sea of Galilee, when you want to move from town to town, sometimes it's a bit faster to take a boat ride rather than to walk across of the sea. And so it's on the Sea of Galilee that the disciple got into the boat, bearing in mind that Peter and some of them were disciples. They have been familiar with the Sea of Galilee. They have been familiar with the boat as well. So the boat that Jesus was on, or the disciple was on, would have been smaller than this one. This was a much larger one today, all because they have bunch of tourists like us, they want to put us into the boat, they'll cram 50 people in it. But in those days, the boat of Jesus is probably maybe 1/3 the size of the boat that you see here, that can easily accommodate 15 to 20 people. So it's not small, but it's not as big as this one. And so today, if you go to tourists and you go to sail the Sea of Galilee, there will be people who demonstrate to you that you can cast a net into the sea and they will guarantee that you catch some fish. So far, I've seen them do it a few times. They throw it in, they put out the net. There's always one fish inside there, and you always wonder whether that is the fish from the Sea of Galilee is somewhere hidden inside the net, which you can't see because the size of the fish they show you is like that. Here we come to this particular. One of the key questions, which is very interesting, is that this sign, the fifth sign, was smack right in the middle of chapter 6. And if you look at chapter 6, before this sign was Jesus feeding the 5,000. Right? After this incident, Jesus gave the bread of life discourse. I'm the bread of life. And smack in between is this very significant fifth sign that Jesus only reveal to the disciples. What is significant here is that this sign itself framed the question that the people were asking. If you go back to one sign before this, feeding the 5,000, at the end of it, the people wanted to make Jesus king by force, right? And then suddenly, you have Jesus walking on water, the fifth sign. And then you go back, the crowd that wanted to make Jesus king by force, they were chasing after Jesus, and then they discovered, hey, he's in Capernaum, let's run to Capernaum and look for him. And that's where Jesus gave the bread of life discourse. At the end, after hearing Jesus, they all realized that, what is this sort of teaching? We don't have anything to do with this one. So they deserted Jesus. They left Jesus. So that's why I read early on, Jesus asked a question to the disciple, do you want to go or not? Peter said, we believe. And I think this fifth sign was significant because the crowd, they are looking for a different king. They are looking for a king they want to make by force so that this king will be their hero that will overturn the Roman Empire. But Jesus wants to show his disciple that he is a different king. He is not the kind of king that they were looking for. Jesus said in verse 26, chapter 6, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw the sign, but because you ate and you ate your fill of the loaves. So they were looking for a different king. So who is this King Jesus? What kind of king he is? Jesus is now revealing himself to the disciples. So when the disciples get on to the boat, as they were sailing across the Sea of Galilee, the sea became rough, and there was strong wind was blowing, and the disciples find it difficult. And then suddenly, Jesus begins to walk on water towards them. Now, this incident of Jesus walking on water has been quite controversial over the years. The question has always been raised, is it true that Jesus walked on water? Or is it a hallucination by the disciples? They were afraid, they suddenly see Jesus, but actually they were very close to the shore already, and Jesus is walking by the shore. At some years ago, there was even a proposal by the Israeli authorities that they wanted to build a little jetty into the Sea of Galilee. And that jetty that they built, it just somehow submerged under the water. So that as tourists, you can pay a little price, and then you walk on this platform into the Sea of Galilee. You can take your selfie or whatever you want to do, as if you are walking on water, just like Jesus. So they were trying to do that. But I was told that the project never took off. Good thing it never took off. All kinds of things that people can think of for tourists. But whatever it is, I think Jesus did walk on water. And it was very interesting if you follow John's narrative here. When Jesus walked on the water, he came towards the boat. They were frightened. And Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. It is I. It is I. Do not be afraid. It is I." Let's not miss the significance of this phrase, "It is I." Because this word, "it is I," if I were to translate that literally, it simply means I am. And this phrase in Greek is the same phrase that's being used to translate the incident that Moses met God in the burning bush, where Yahweh revealed himself to Moses. "I am that I am," or "I am who I am." It is the same word, I am. That is the same expression that was being used to translate Yahweh meeting Moses in the burning bush. As it's translated into the Septuagint, it's the very same words that's being used here. I am. Now, why is this I am so significant? Here is Jesus revealing himself to the disciples, disclosing himself that he is indeed God, because Jesus is using that name of God. I am that I am. Now, in John's narrative, it didn't say very fully that Jesus intended to disclose himself to the disciples. But if you read the narrative in the Gospel of Mark, it was even more significant. Let's read the same parallel passage in the Gospel of Mark, Mark chapter 6. Now, if you look at Mark chapter 6, the same event, Mark has very interesting insight here. Okay, let's read Mark, right? Let's read from verse 47. "And when evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. When he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea." Right? This is Jesus walking on water. Now pay attention to what comes towards the end of verse 48. "He meant to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out. For they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, 'Take heart. I am. It is I. Do not be afraid.' And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased." Now, Mark is very interesting. Mark said this phrase, that when Jesus was walking towards the boat, to where the disciples were, he wanted to pass by them. He wanted to pass by them. Now, it's a little bit unfortunate NIV translation translate that he was about to pass by them. Now, the intention was not like agak, but intention is that he really wanted to pass by them. He meant to pass by them. He wanted to pass by them. Now, why would Jesus wanted to pass by the disciples? Here, he saw the disciples were struggling, right? And he wanted to walk towards them. And can you imagine he was walking towards the boat, right? What Jesus was wanting to do was not to get inside the boat, but he wanted to pass by them. Now, this phrase, to pass by them, again, is a technical language that's being used when Yahweh revealed himself to Moses. How did Yahweh reveal himself to Moses? He passed by, right? And then he said, I am that I am. And here you see in this particular sign, Jesus was doing the same thing as well. He wanted to pass by the disciple and reveal himself as the I am. I am that I am. So that the disciple know for sure that through this sign, it is God manifesting himself to the disciples. That is why when Jesus asked the disciple later on, do you want to leave? Look at the crowd, they have left already. What about you? To whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. And we believed. That's what Simon Peter said. They have seen this sign that Jesus passed by them and revealed himself as the I am to them. And this is very significant because this particular sign was for the disciples themselves. No one else was present to witness it. It's only the disciples. It was like a private appearance of God. That's why I say the theophany for the disciples. I am who I am. So that they know for sure this is the real king that has come to them and he is God. Not the king that the crowd wanted them to be. So if you look at this narrative in John chapter 6, you will see something interesting already, right? It started with feeding the 5,000 to the crowd. And the crowd wanted to make, right? And then you have this section where Jesus walked on water and show himself what kind of king he is to the disciples. And then you come back to the crowd again, who was looking for Jesus, and they want to make Jesus king. And Jesus told them that he's not the kind of king they were looking for. In the end, they all walk away from Jesus. So it's very interesting, right? Jesus chose to reveal to the disciple a real king, what kind of king he is. Jesus also revealed to them through the sign of feeding the 5,000. But they rather look at the sign. Jesus himself said, you follow me because you saw not because you saw the sign, but because you ate the 5 loaves and 2 fish and you were filled. You were full and you have left over. Therefore, you follow. So what Jesus was saying that this crowd here missed that sign of seeing who Jesus really is, the real king. So disciples, you have seen Jesus has power over nature as he walked towards you, as he walked on water. He wanted to pass by you and reveal himself as I am to you. Would you believe in this king? That's why at the end, Jesus gave the disciples a choice. What kind of king are you looking for? The crowd? You want to follow the crowd, right? They have left already. What about you? You want to go too? You can follow them. Choose for yourself what kind of king you want to serve. That kind of king that the crowd wanted? Or have you truly seen the king? And Peter said, you have the words of eternal life. And we believe. To whom shall we go? No one else. We believe in you. They have seen Jesus, the real king, through the sign of Jesus walking on water. What about us? Have we seen Jesus too as a real I am, as a real king, a king of the universe, the king who created the heaven and earth? who chose to tabernacle among us? Or are we like the crowd who merely saw the sign of feeding the 5,000 plus leftovers? And that's the kind of king that we are looking for. So again, you see the signs. It points towards Jesus. Have we seen Jesus? The I am in this case. That is the fifth sign.